For the first time since the US invasion of Iraq in 2003, a wind of hope is blowing through Baghdad. The violence and suicide attacks, which had become commonplace, are diminishing. People have more confidence. Outdoor cafes, art galleries, book markets, all opening up as Baghdad experiences a mini renaissance. It's a far cry from the instability of the last 15 years, which began with the US and coalition invasion of Iraq in 2003. Just a few weeks later, the toppling of the statue of Saddam Hussein, the image which still rests in the minds of so many. More recently, in 2014, the Islamic State group launched its Iraqi offensive, declaring a worldwide Islamic caliphate in the country and neighbouring Syria. Although it never reached Baghdad, the city hit by numerous IS suicide attacks and a severe drain on resources. It wasn't until the end of 2017 that the Iraqi government claimed victory.
We announce to our people and to the whole world that our heroes have reached the final stronghold of the Islamic State group and purified them, raising the Iraqi flag over areas of western Anbar, which were the last hijacked Iraqi territories. The Iraqi flag flies high today over all Iraqi lands and over the remotest border areas.
Nowadays, Mercer's annual Quality of Life survey still lists Baghdad as the worst city in the world to live in. Corruption remains endemic, women's rights have been eroded, and disillusionment with politicians is high. It remains a society scarred by violence and deep divisions. But despite all that, that newfound wind of hope I spoke of remains. Well, Simona Foltyn revisits Baghdad for France 24.
A special event is underway at Iraq's Plastic Art Society in Baghdad. Qasem Sabti, a veteran Iraqi painter who heads the society, is about to honor young artists who have displayed their work during an annual exhibition.
Through you, the youth, we can see ourselves, and we can see our future. In fact, the old masters took care of us with love, and we're now trying to take care of you.
Pulling together such an event isn't easy. The state provides no financial support for art deemed as haram or forbidden by some political and religious establishments that rose to power after the 2003 American-led invasion. Although Baghdad has been more stable since the official defeat of the Islamic State group last year, political uncertainty lingers.
Of course, there is very little joy here in Iraq. The artistic and cultural activities are very difficult. It's hard to conduct them in these circumstances, in this political situation. Because in reality, you know, we are a country with militias everywhere.
And yet, the Society has received a record number of submissions for this year's exhibition.
Just think that twice the number of works you see here were rejected, only because the hall couldn't accommodate more. Even now, the exhibition feels overcrowded.
31-year-old NOOR Ali is one of the emerging artists honored in today's event. Even though she grew up during some of Iraq's deadliest years, she refuses to let the past define her art and her future.
I like to draw about realistic issues, but I'm getting bored of issues related to misery and sorrow. We need to paint things that bring us happiness. We have this sadness inside, and we draw sadness. But we should not always dwell on it. We should carry on.
Despite this newly found sense of hope, Baghdad's troubled history weighs heavily on the capital and its inhabitants. 15 years after the American-led invasion, symbols of Saddam Hussein's dictatorship and signs of the instability that followed in the wake of his demise remain omnipresent. Qasem vividly remembers the mayhem that engulfed the city in the immediate aftermath of Saddam's downfall. Looters exploited the security vacuum to ransack some of Iraq's most precious institutions.
During the first stage of the American occupation, a huge fire broke out at the Fine Arts Academy, which is close to where I live and close to this gallery.
Qasem tried to rescue some of his most treasured art history books.
When I saw the Russian landscape book, I had to save it from the fire, because back when I was a student, I would use it for some of my work. Then, when I became a teacher, I even had my students use it.
He could only save the cover of the book from the flames, but out of devastation, inspiration was born. Qasem rose to fame when he used the remains of the rescued books to create art, which he exhibited in galleries around the world.
I repurposed the book's cover that was destroyed during the war after the arrival of the Americans. All of the libraries were burnt down. This is a chance to bring the book back to life. It's very symbolic.
While the American invasion may have offered a historical chance for some, the sectarian conflict that followed has left the society traumatized. Irada Al Jabbouri is an author, professor of journalism, and activist whose work has been deeply influenced by the violence of the mid-2000s. She takes us to Haifa Street, back then one of the most dangerous spots in Baghdad. She used to pass through here every day on her way to work.
This street during the day was frightening. It became the center of the resistance for armed groups directing their weapons at the Americans.
Irada processed her memories as well as the experiences of her friends and relatives in the script for a forthcoming movie, Another Day in Baghdad.
Every night there's a curfew, and every dawn it lifts.
The film depicts the daily struggles of ordinary Iraqis as they try to live their lives in the face of unpredictable violence.
In Another Day in Baghdad, you don't see the war, you don't see this street. What I'm treating in Another Day in Baghdad is the struggle inside the characters, their history, their beautiful stories, their personal stories, and the history of their suffering.
It's hard to find an Iraqi who doesn't have a story of personal loss from those years. Fuad al-Kinani has lived on Haifa Street since the 1990s. He left for 1 year in 2006 after 2 members of his own family were killed.
What do you remember about this place?
They're painful memories.
For instance?
When you want to leave in the morning for work, you pass by these places and they're full of corpses. My cousin was taken from here. They took him and they killed him. And we don't know where they threw him. My brother, he was an ambassador in Canada. He came to Iraq, but he was also taken from here. And we don't know what happened to him.
The sectarian conflict in the 2000s was just one of many violent eras that have scarred the Iraqi people. Before that, in the 1980s, the Iraq-Iran war claimed hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives. Most recently, the country has been ravaged by the war against the Islamic State group.
There is always a reason for Iraqi people to die. They die because of wars, because of embargoes, bombardments by the coalition, occupation, sectarianism, accidents, corruption. The process of Iraqis dying is continuing. So I think we still haven't had the chance to really grieve and overcome those periods.
The next day, Irada, together with one of her students, takes us to another area of Baghdad that has seen a lot of bloodshed. Karada is a Shia majority middle-class neighborhood. During the 4-year reign of the Islamic State group in the country's north, Karada was frequently targeted with suicide bombings.
This area witnessed a lot of car bomb explosions, which killed a lot of people close to the markets. Whenever there's a gathering of people, there will be explosions. Even in this place, there was an explosion here.
We are at Abu Zahra, a popular street cafe that was hit by an Islamic State group suicide bomber in April 2014. Several people died in the attack, including the brother of the cafe's owner. But despite being targeted by Sunni extremists, Harada's predominantly Shia inhabitants have rejected sectarianism.
I feel that this place embodies Iraqi diversity. It didn't change despite the circumstance. There is still a lot of diversity. You'll find Muslims, Christians, Shia, Sunnis, even though there's a Shia majority.
The violence and lack of prospects did prompt some of Harada's inhabitants to leave. In 2015, after Hassan graduated college, he decided to travel to Finland.
We didn't have job opportunities here. At that time, Iraq was embroiled in the fight against the IS group, and the future wasn't clear, and it still isn't clear. Dr. Irada was against my decision to leave the country. She said, if all of you young people leave the country, who will be left?
Hassan made his way to Europe through Turkey and Greece, a well-worn escape route for millions of Iraqis and Syrians. He applied for asylum in Finland, but returned to Iraq after Finnish authorities rejected his claim.
The experience was very hard, but very important. It added a lot. It made me aware of myself and the value of the place where I'm from. It's difficult to surrender your roots and sense of belonging.
And yet, the future for Iraq's youth remains uncertain. Even though the country enjoys relative stability, corruption, poor services, and unemployment are pushing youngsters to the brink. Hassan is one of thousands of young people who have taken part in widespread anti-government protests this year.
The young people are angry. I'm now 26 years old, but I've seen maybe 26,000 dead bodies. I've been to places that I shouldn't have been. I've gone to the morgue to look for dead friends, and I was detained more than once because of my journalistic activities. We should learn from these experiences to pave the way for the future.
The conflict with the Islamic State group has claimed tens of thousands of lives and has left parts of the country in ruins. The physical and psychological wounds left in its wake have barely begun to heal. Ali Abed Yasser was a soldier. He lost both of his legs and with them his future while fighting the terror group.
I have no future. My future is destroyed. I'm a citizen without a homeland. I mean, I'm Iraqi. I liberated Iraq, I fought for Iraq, but I have nothing in Iraq.
Ali joined the army in 2014, shortly after Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, fell to the militants. He injured his legs, hand and spine when a suicide bomber attacked his unit in 2015. 3 years later, the government hasn't helped him recover. The 35-year-old war veteran is still waiting for prosthetic legs.
We fought for liberation, so the government was stable in the green zone while we were sleeping under blankets in the trenches. We fought ISIS and liberated Iraq from the IS group, but we haven't gotten anything from the government.
With government hospitals not providing adequate care, Ali has little choice but to seek out expensive private clinics. The following day, we accompany him as his neighbor Jalal takes him to see an orthopedic surgeon. Ali has no professional caretaker to help him and completely relies on his neighbor's support.
I help him with everything. I take him to the doctors, go with him to admin appointments. Wherever he goes, I go.
Ali worries about the cost of the forthcoming treatment.
The doctor's fees are very expensive. I can't afford it. I'd need around 150 euros to go to a private doctor.
Just getting to the doctor is a struggle, an impossible undertaking without Jalal's help. After only a few minutes of examination, the doctor reprimands Ali for not coming earlier and orders new tests. Who will pay for them? as well as Ali's prosthetic legs, remains unclear. Nevertheless, Ali feels a sense of relief for having taken his fate into his own hands.
The doctor explained my situation, and I feel relieved psychologically. I will keep on following up with the doctor so that the nerves in my hand and in my legs will get better.
Throughout the turmoil of the past 15 years, Iraqis like Ali have earned a reputation for their ability to pick up the pieces and begin again. Now it finally appears as though Baghdad, a city that has seen and lost so much, may finally get a breather and enjoy a period of relative stability.
Simona Foltyn revisiting Baghdad for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition of the programme. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it again and all the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. Thanks for watching. More news coming up shortly.